I'm like a self-taught artist now. I've been known on social media for what I do, and I make these beautiful mosaics out of Rubik's Cubes. I'm known as the college cuber.
Dylan, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to meet you again. So people need to understand that this is your second chance. And I don't know if you're gonna fix things for me. So when we first met, you caused me great trauma. You put together this incredible piece of art and then told me I had to destroy it. It took me a little bit to get over that. So let's hope for a good interview.
Yeah.
All right, no pressure.
I'm excited.
You've had a fascinating journey here. Everybody's got interesting stories, of course, but this has been an unusual year for you. Help the viewers understand like why this year's just been a little bit different.
Coming into college, right? I was on campus. I lived at school. Everything was normal. Like I said, I lived in one of the dorms. And then, like we all experienced, COVID was a problem for all of us. But what's different, this is actually my first time back on campus. But this time, while I'm on campus, I'm actually doing something else in my spare time. And what that something else is I'm like a self-taught artist now. Okay, I become an artist. I've been known on social media for what I do, and I make these beautiful mosaics out of Rubik's Cubes.
And you're known as who?
I'm known as the college cuber online.
College cuber.
Yeah, I'm known as the college cuber. Yeah. So it actually started in April of 2021. So I'm about 11 months in. So this is my first like full semester where I'm juggling the college cuber, and at the same time, I'm a full-time college student.
I confess I didn't know about you. I wasn't following you on Instagram at the time. But as we're the run up to the inauguration and they're having this community celebration event, and I was told, and the college cube is going to be there. I'm like, the what? The college cube? I mean, this is a very strange thing. I didn't know. And then I hear another time, yes, the Rubik's Cube kid. I'm like, I didn't make the connection. I'm like, I don't know what's happening here. And then I come across you building this mosaic with the Rubik's Cubes. And it took me a beat before I realized it was my face. And then I'm like, whoa, that's my face. That was just kind of amazing. But you've got quite a following on the campus and off campus as well. I just learned that your first time in Madison Square Garden was not holding a ticket.
I was actually invited by the New York Knicks.
That's more or less not at all like my first time in the Garden. But anyway, go ahead.
I've actually been at Madison Square Garden within the last 6 months, twice. Both of the times I did not purchase a ticket. I was invited. My first time ever, the New York Knicks, they reached out to me like, hey, we love your artwork. Thank you for making a video for us. We wanted you to come spend some time at the Garden. First time ever at a live sporting event in my entire life, actually. So yeah, I got to watch the Knicks play. Unfortunately, they did not win. But I got to see the Knicks play. And then recently, this is January 7th, I was invited back to the Garden by a company called PBR, the Professional Bull Riders. I don't know if you've seen on TV
yet.
Not, no. The guys, they hop on.
I know what they do, but
yeah, these very aggressive bulls. So there was an event at Madison Square Garden. They reached out to me like, hey, Dylan, we've seen you do something very similar. We've seen all your work. Can you please come? I want you to perform at Madison Square Garden. And that's like for any type of person you are. You're like end all be all dream is to perform at Madison Square Garden. So
you can walk around saying, yeah, I played the Garden.
I performed at Madison Square Garden.
I performed at the Garden.
Yeah, I performed at
haven't you? Yeah, that's what you can say. That's awesome. This cubing artwork started for you at home. It was like something to do, it sounds like. That's the way I've been told. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
And then it just went from a hobby or curiosity to a hobby to a thing. But in the course of like, what, 6 months or something?
Today, I made my first mosaic ever 11 months ago.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'll take you through the entire story, my thought process, everything that's going on.
Yeah.
So April 2021, that's the first time I ever made a mosaic. Before that, I'm gonna explain to you what I'm going through my mind. I'm a full-time college student. I study biomedical engineering at Rutgers University, of course. But like I said, unfortunately, COVID was a huge part of my life. My junior year at Rutgers, very intensive program. I should be in the classroom, especially as an engineer. I should be using my hands. I should be in the labs doing all these things that engineers are supposed to do. Unfortunately, I was not in the classroom. There's online classes. I don't get to use my hands like I'm expected, like what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, I'm still an engineer whether I'm in the classroom or not. So I came up with this idea, and I used something that I learned when I was just 10 years old. When I was 10 years old, I learned how to solve the Rubik's Cube, and then it kind of fell off. It was kind of just like, hey, whatever.
You've done it.
Yeah,
Okay,
a party trick that I learned when I was younger. And I was like, hey, maybe I can revive that. I'll use that. I'm not an artist at this time at all. Like I said, I'm an engineer. But I was like, I think I can do something crazy. That's what engineers are like. That's what we're made for.
Mm-hmm.
So I came up with this idea, made my first piece of artwork, and naturally, with this generation, you have to post it on social media.
Of course you do.
So you have to post it on social media. I posted on social media. I made my first player is Luka Doncic for the Dallas Mavericks. I love the Dallas Mavericks. I love Mark Cuban. So I made Luka Doncic. Fortunately, they actually reached out to me. They saw my first ever video. TikTok is the platform to be. Like, you need to be on TikTok. I posted on TikTok. And,
people try to get me on TikTok.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
You're gonna have.
Not going to happen. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
We'll talk about that.
Okay, yeah, fine,
we'll
whatever.
talk about that. But yeah, the Dallas Mavericks, they liked my video, commented on my video, followed me, and reposted on their social medias. So that was already enough. I was like, I already did it. I made it. I'm done.
Right.
Like, this is it. So I was really excited. And on that same video, another basketball team commented, the Portland Trail Blazers, hey, can you make a player for us? I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? This is pretty cool. Let me continue this. My list started to increase. I'm starting having 30, 40, 50, 60 different professional sports teams. And if you really think about it, one sports league only has about 30 teams. So I'm getting really into a large percentage of all sports teams. And at that point, I'm like, I must be doing something pretty important if everyone's asking me to do something like this. I don't really understand what I'm doing yet.
Yeah.
But I'm just making
So
videos.
I just have to interrupt.
Yeah, of course.
So within a couple of months,
Yeah.
you're knocking out one major professional sports franchise after another. 6 months later, someone's saying, hey, will you do the president of Rutgers?
Yeah.
You're like, really? Do I have time for this guy? What the heck?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, big letdown, but I appreciate you taking some time out from your professional sports
Yeah,
activities.
well, I mean, you're part of my catalog. You're up there with all those professional athletes, Ronaldo, Luka Doncic, all of them.
I think of myself in that way all the time. Yes,
as you should. So this is really the turning point in my story. Is I believe it was July of 2021, right? The Detroit Pistons, they reached out to me. They're like, hey, Dylan, any way we could purchase one of your pieces of artwork? And I'm like, I mean, maybe if I figure it out, but I've never done something like that. So let me think about it, and I'll let you know. And obviously, I'm not going to tell the Pistons no. So I'm like, yeah, I think we could work something out, So I come up with this thing, and my first ever one that I sold is actually really small. It's in a shadow box.
Okay.
I mean, like a jersey-sized piece of artwork.
yeah.
First one I ever made, sent it to them, and they loved it. And I'm like, okay, that was pretty cool. But at the same time, the Detroit Tigers, Detroit Lions, Detroit Red Wings, and the Pistons were all reaching out to me at the same time. And the Red Wings actually, they invited me out to Detroit. They're like, hey, Dylan, thank you so much for the video. We'd love for you to come to our NHL draft party in Detroit. And we're from New Jersey, so I'm like, I mean, maybe, I guess I can attend, right? So I was like, I might as well just ask all of them. Would you guys like, I could come meet all you guys at the same time. Let's do
You saw
something,
the opportunity, you took it. Yeah.
So I suggested it to all of them. They all agreed. In about 4 days span, I worked with 4 different professional sports teams from every single sports, like every sport league. I worked with the NHL, NBA team, an NFL team, and an MLB team all in the same weekend.
So this is a perfect advertisement for Rutgers education, because this is clearly the next link for Rutgers education. Is that you'll be able to syndicate yourself to professional sports franchises.
Yep.
Yeah, that's absolutely part of our calling card from now on. Yeah.
It was an amazing experience, obviously, but the most important thing is I learned so much from that one experience, my first time ever. Learned so much, and I still use it today.
How many Rubik's Cubes did you travel with?
Yeah, so each one of my mosaics, there's 560 that go into each one. I brought over 2,000 Rubik's Cubes.
That's amazing.
And I also brought 4 frames, and my frames are very big.
I remember.
Two of them were full size, and they're about 5.5 feet by 4 feet. And then 2 of them were like mini, like I said, shadow box, which is about, 3 feet by 2 feet. So 4 different pieces of artwork, over 2,000 cubes, flew to Detroit, never been to Detroit, traveled by myself, stayed right in the heart of downtown Detroit, right next to all the stadiums. and it was truly an experience. And that point was when I was like, hey, maybe I could turn this into like something bigger than
Right.
just social media and videos. And it was all thanks to those teams.
I wish I could go back and look at the people scanning your luggage, the faces, that they're like, what the heck?
Yeah, I know.
This guy really loves his Rubik's cubes.
Yeah, I know.
So you've gone this really spectacular journey, and I know we could keep talking about, you know, your discovered, your self-taught artistry. But I do want to talk about your journey to Rutgers and your experiences here. Now, you talked about COVID disrupting everything. But you're in biomedical engineering. You didn't set out, obviously, to become the college cuber.
Yeah.
Like, what was your trajectory as you're going through Rutgers, and what was your pathway as you saw it?
Yeah, of course. So I'm actually a first generation college student, and my vision was I want to be a prosthetic engineer, which is a branch of biomedical engineering. So as a prosthetic engineer, there's tons of different departments, but basically you're helping patients that don't have the ability to do things that we do every day. We take extremely for granted for the things we do. Obviously, very simple things like walking, picking up things off the ground, even feeding ourselves, things like that. I look at that, it's like, wow, that's really unfortunate. We can't even imagine what it's like to do something like that. And if I could be the person that helps them live in everyday life and like do everyday tasks, that's where I want to be. So I wanted to be a prosthetic engineer, and I still do to this day. But as you said, you know, the college cuber comes in, and not really sure where that lies yet, but
Right. There's something there. You'll be on a journey, but you certainly will have a good skill to fall back on. And this is the beauty of, in this case, a Rutgers education, is that, okay, college cubing was not something we could have told you was going to be in your future, granted, but you developed a whole bunch of skill sets that allow you to branch off in lots of different directions. And sadly, there will always be a need for prosthetics, for next generation technology and prosthetics, and you're doing that work here. That's really exciting. And so, you know, you'll see what happens next after with your artwork. But what would be, if the artwork wasn't your next step, how would you envision, if you could write your script, clearly you want to help people with mobility issues or accessibility issues, but like, where does one go when you have the undergrad degree in biomedical engineering? What do you do?
Yeah, so that's actually a great question, and that's something that I still have to figure out myself.
Okay.
You know, because especially as a first-generation college student, I'm not really too familiar with the field. But what I've been told, specifically, I'll tell you what I really wanted.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a background in business as well. You know, I'm very educated in business. My older brother, he owns his own business.
Okay.
So I have a lot of first-hand experience, especially when it comes to sales. Okay. So like I always, in the back of my head, it's like, hey man, like I want to be a businessman. You know, and how do you connect business and engineering? Okay, so there's two different ways. You know, I can either sell prosthetics. You know, you need a biomedical engineering degree to sell prosthetics. So I can go off on behalf of a prosthetic engineering company, for example, Stryker. I'll be their salesman. I'll go out to their hospitals and I'll pitch to the doctors. I'm like, hey, this is why you want to work with this company, and I'm the guy to convince you. That'd be amazing. I'm doing my engineering. I work with prosthetics. And I'm a salesman, you know? Being an engineer is very, very, very general. So I can actually create my own product, whether that's my artwork or that's just anything, you know, like as simple as like a toothbrush. I can engineer a toothbrush and I'll sell my own toothbrush. You know, I created my own product and I sell it. And that's what engineering is. We learn in school the engineering concept, like the process of engineering. I'll walk you through some of the processes.
Please do.
So the first thing is you have to define a problem, okay? After you define a problem, you need to do research on your problem, okay? Then you're gonna map out how you're gonna solve your problem. After you map out how you're gonna solve your problem, you create your product, and then you communicate your results on why it's important, okay? And I actually use that exact same engineering concept. I use it in school, and I use it in my artwork. So I'll take you through both ways, okay? So the first way,
You're gonna make me buy something at the end of
no,
this?
no.
So I feel like a setup coming.
No.
Okay.
So engineering, right? So I'll talk you through my artwork, you know, because I'm very familiar with my artwork. The problem, okay? So the problem is I'm sitting here, I have 560 cubes. How am I gonna make President Holloway's face? That's my problem, okay? Okay, so now we gotta do some research, right? Because how am I gonna solve this problem? I'm gonna look at pictures of President Holloway online. So I look at pictures, I study your face, I look at sometimes hundreds or thousands of pictures online. So that's my research, okay? Then I'm gonna map out how I'm gonna solve your problem. So the way I map it out is on my iPad. I have I use software. I'm also, like I said, I'm an artist, so I hand draw, change colors, throw a grid over the top. That's my engineering process. You know, I have to create a design for myself. I'm not just gonna come and freestyle. You know, I need a plan to follow. So I create my plan, and then it's what everyone's familiar with is me creating my product. That's the part of the process that everyone's familiar with. So here I am, I'm sitting down, solving every single cube, stack them all the way to the top. That's my process, cameras on, stuff like that. And then I communicate.
And then you break my heart when it's time to dump the whole thing
And then
out.
I just throw it down and just forget about it all.
I'm clearly not over it, but go ahead.
And then the way I communicate my results or communicate how important my work is through social media. That's how I communicate. And things like this, interviews. I talk about my process, explain who I am, and I convince people why this is important. It's literally what we learn in school, the engineering concept, the process of engineering, how you're gonna solve a problem. I use that for my artwork, and we use it in school as well for our projects.
So this is great because people will wonder why, critics of higher ed will wonder why, well, what's the use of a liberal arts education? Not understanding that all of STEM is part of liberal arts as well. And you've actually just given the viewing audience the perfect explanation is that you developed a set of critical thinking skills and critical literal skills, manipulative skills that you could apply to a problem and you can solve it. And then you can display your answer and help, whatever you're creating an opportunity for someone else to enjoy your answer. That's what a liberal arts education does. And then you've got this business side to it as well. And this is what I love about Rutgers. It has all what I'll call the old-fashioned liberal arts world with that applied education. So like you built a business plan. Kind of stumbled along the way once or twice. Got to learn how to do that better. But, now here you are. All the professional sports teams are trying to get your services. And I'm just trying to get in a little bit of time so I can, as your president, can I get 30 minutes of your time, please? And so, you're building, you're expressing the beauty of that liberal arts education and also applying those business skills together. I think it's just, it's wonderful. You are an advertisement for us, which I appreciate. You've had an unusual journey for a first-gen kid, right? And a lot of times there's challenges in translating for the parents or the grandparents or the family. Well, this is what my world is like. And how's that story gone with your parents?
So my mom, she's from Trinidad. Okay, she moved here when she was 19 years old with me and my older brother. Now we have a third, a younger brother. So as you can imagine, her life was very different. She grew up on a farm with goats and chickens. She tells me all this stuff, how my grandfather, he's like the king of the farm and stuff like that. Obviously, we didn't have anything like that. Social media was definitely not a thing. It was mostly to get a job. So when I came, my mom's like, hey, I'm not forcing you to go to college, but they say the most success comes when you go to college. And I'm like, okay, I'll consider it. So I go to college and it's what I was doing and that's what I was into. But you start getting exposed to social media and I'm like, hey mom, I came up with this idea. It's not what I learned in school, but I guess it's kind of similar. So I'm gonna try something new. I'm gonna buy 600 cubes. My mom's like, you're out of your mind. You're wasting your time, you're wasting your money.
That would be a hard conversation.
Yeah. But see, the thing about it is I always tell my mom after I do something. I don't tell her before. I don't wait for her approval. You have to tell her after. It's like, Mom, I already bought it, so it's coming. I'm just letting you know. When they knock on the door and there's 600 cubes there, just know that's for me.
You're briefing her.
Yeah. Yes. So I'm just giving her a heads up, So I'm like, hey, Mom, I bought a bunch of cubes, and I'm going to do something. I can't really explain it. I'm going to just show you. I'll show you when it happens, okay? I'm just going to show you when it happens. She's like, oh, you're making a mistake. I'm like, oh, Mom, don't worry about it. Now she sees all the success I've had. My mom's my biggest fan. She walks my dog on the block. She's knocking on everyone's door. Guess who my son is? Guess what my son's doing? So, it's something that I was very aware of, especially when it comes to my older brother. My older brother, he was like the guinea pig. He was the first. He was like, hey, I'm not going to college. I'm not doing the normal route. I'm going to start my own business. And it was this, I saw it happen in front of my eyes. She had the same conversation with him. Like, hey, you don't know what you're doing. It's unsafe. You're not going to make any money. And now, she buys cars from him. He's a car salesman. Okay. She buys cars from him. She uses his services. She promotes him. She tells everyone about my older brother. So it's the same thing. I completely expected it to happen. But yeah, you just got to give her a heads up. And they always come around. She's not going to... She always comes
Well,
around.
I think your mother comes around because you're brother and you have proven the concept.
Yeah.
So good for you for doing that stuff, and good for her believing in you. And I suspect if I ran into her on the street, I would know all about you and your brother, and it doesn't matter who I am.
Yeah.
She's going to break it down in that way. That's wonderful. We're filming this at the moment of the college admission cycle, and people are picking their schools. What are you going to tell people about what Rutgers provides for them?
They provide me with the skills, the mindset, all things like that, and I kind of did my own thing. I could use my degree, and I probably still will use my degree, but Rutgers really brings you together with your peers. You guys can brainstorm together, figure out things together, understand the environment, and get some guidance on where you want to take your education or your future.
We want people to understand that you come to a place like Rutgers with this huge landscape of opportunities and facilities. And look, sometimes it's harder to figure out. We're a big, confusing place. I get that. But there are so many opportunities and resources here that if you have the drive and the energy and whatnot, you can chart an amazing path through the university and come out with a whole different set of skills than when you entered. That's what should be the case. A whole different way of understanding the world, which should be also the case because you're being educated. And then it's up to you.
Yeah.
But it's up to you with the skills, with the refined knowledge that you got through Rutgers education and through working with your peers. Now, in your case, it's a bit different for your generation because COVID did a number on everybody and you have less interaction. But now we're rebuilding those connections. And I know that when you were doing My Face with the Rubik's Cubes, it was cool to see your peers all around you. Like they clearly knew who you were all about and they were watching this thing come together. And I was feeling like I'm the odd man out here. I'm trying to figure out, looks like it's my face. That's kind of weird, but this is also really cool. But for me, it was a joy to watch Rutgers students rally around. And that's a good part of the college experience too, like finding your people and being unleashed to do great things. It has been a thrill to sit here and talk with you. I've asked you a ton of questions. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, so I very much embrace mistakes. Okay, that's something that I love to do. Like I said, like in Detroit, made tons of mistakes, and I bring them with me all the time. So can you point to any specific mistake that you really point towards most of your success, and you credit it?
We do not have the time to get through the catalog of mistakes, but really seriously, there is a moment for me that has a much longer story, but I'll boil it down to what I learned in the process. I was going through at a previous job a moment of student protest and a lot of fear and anxiety and frustration, and I got it, I understood it. And I found myself really being sympathetic deeply to the student activist in this case, but also trying to balance all the different competing pressures, and there were a ton of them. And it was really, I felt stuck. And what I learned from that process is that, look, when you're a president or in higher education, a high position in a structure or running your own company, you're going to find yourself faced with situations where there's no answer. There's no good answer, but you have to make a decision. There comes a time when you have to truly listen to yourself. Like the values that developed over your lifetime, the skills you developed, the critical thinking skills, your problem solving ability, all those things make a truth, like in your gut. Like your gut will actually be telling you what to do. Now, you might be arguing with yourself like, well, that might look bad or that will hurt somebody's feelings or something like that. But I believe that you do have to trust your gut at this really difficult moment. And I hope the gut is ethical, I hope it's responsible, I hope it's all those things. But for me, I found myself fighting against what my gut was telling me. And then I learned, you know what? You're a good person, Jonathan. You believe in supporting people. You want to help the underdog. Trust your gut and speak truthfully about it. And it's going to be okay. Not everybody's going to be happy, but that's inevitable in jobs like this. But trust yourself, speak your truth, and you can move forward.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking that question. So, look, I say it easily now, probably in 3 or 4 days, I'll be like, okay, trust your gut, Jonathan, speak truthfully. So you have to remind yourself because no one likes having the mistake, but you do learn from them. Thanks for the question. Thank you for sharing your journey, for your art, for your honesty about it as well. I cannot wait to see what you do next, literally as far as your art, but also what you're going to do in the world. It's exciting. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.